The Rangers are looking to trade both Jonah Heim and Adolis Garcia, but where would they go and what would they bring back? Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Paddock, a criminally addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you don't already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we are talking about the Rangers unofficially listing Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim on the trade block. What kind of return would they get, and where do they stack up against other trade targets for teams looking for some bats? Before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Now, the Rangers, according to Jeff Passan of ESPN, are looking to shop 2 starters from the World Series Championship. Adolis Garcia, the 2023 ALCS MVP, and Jonah Heim, an all-star back in 2023, and since then has not been particularly great. But what does that mean for this Texas Rangers squad? Well, it means they're going to be looking for probably another platoon bat to start out there in right field. Alejandro Ozuna is almost assuredly going to be the Rangers' primary, I guess, against right-handed pitching right fielder. And then the Rangers will be looking for some kind of secondary catcher. I don't think the guys who they have on the roster are necessarily going to be those options there at backup catcher. Willie McIver is on the 40-man roster, a recent signee. I don't see that as a viable backup catcher option to Kyle Higashioka. But what does the market even look like? Well, the market started to get set earlier yesterday. It has been very, very quickly that Taylor Ward has been traded. Very recently, Taylor Ward has been traded to the Baltimore Orioles for right-handed pitcher Grayson Rodriguez. Taylor Ward has been with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim for his entire career, and Grayson Rodriguez, a former top prospect, a guy who had a lot of hype around him and a lot of upside, was thought of Grayson Rodriguez being the next, homegrown ace of the Baltimore Orioles. Him being, pretty solid in 2024 and really good down the stretch in 2023 was part of the reason, I think, why Baltimore was comfortable letting Corbin Burnes walk in free agency after 2024. And then this year, they were an abject disaster. Grayson Rodriguez missed all of 2025 with some elbow issues, dealt with elbow surgery, and missed the entirety of the season. In 2024, and he had 20 starts there, an ERA below 4, 116 2/3 innings, 10 strikeouts per 9.5 Ks per 9 in the year before that. Down the stretch, he was one of the better pitchers in baseball, but in that ALDS, he got absolutely lit up by the Rangers in 2023. He's still just heading into his age 26 season. He's still very, very young. He's not going to be a free agent for quite some time. I believe it's 2029 that it's going to be before we see Grayson Rodriguez hit the free agent market. It seems like a good pickup for the Angels, who give away Taylor Ward, who feels like he's been on the trading block for forever. Coming off of a career-high 36 home run season, Taylor Ward is a 2.7 baseball reference WAR, which is exactly the same baseball reference WAR as Adolis Garcia. Both of them have 1 year left on their contract. Ward is a year younger than Adolis. Think more defensive value with Adolis and less more offensive value with Taylor Ward. Projected to make around $11.2 million in arbitration this year. His second, somehow not his final arbitration season. He has been in the big leagues for parts of now 8 seasons and still has one more ARB year left, according to Spotrac, which I don't think is accurate. I don't know how he has any more arbitration years left, because he's played 40 games in 2018, 20 in 2019, 34 in 2020, and still did not accrue a full year of service time to that point. But He still has one more year under contract and had a 792 OPS last season, 116 OPS plus. Just a pretty solid hitter to add to a Baltimore Orioles squad that did not have a good offense last year. Actually, had a pretty awful offense outside of Gunnar Henderson and Ramon Laureano for the first half of that season. The offense was pretty bad. Ryan O'Hearn was pretty solid, but they traded him away at midseason. Same with Ramon Laureano, both of them to the Padres. Tyler O'Neill was their big signing in the offseason. He was awful. Colton Cowser missed about half the season. He was just kind of fine. Jackson Holiday was fine. 21 years old, but still just fine. Kobe Mayo was not particularly great. Adley Rutschman had an awful year. I mean, they really were in desperate need of some offense, of some outfield bats, because Dylan Carlson played more than half the season for them, and he had a 73 OPS plus. He was bad. He was very bad, and so were the Baltimore Orioles, again in 2025, after having the brightest future ever, according to John Smoltz, in 2023. But that kind of sets this market up for what they're going to get. I mean, Grayson Rodriguez is coming off of a year where he missed the entire season and wasn't, outstanding before that, but still a very solid pitcher with, I believe, at least 3 years of club control. Still, I do not believe has hit arbitration. Maybe he has another pre-arbitration year. Maybe this is his first year of arbitration, but still, that is a solid return for 1 year of a guy who has been, about a 2.5-ish win player for his career. I mean, he had 3.5 win season back in 2022, 1.7 win season 2023, 2.5-ish wins the last couple of years. He's averaged 2.5 wins the last couple of years, been about 25, 30 home runs the last few years of his career. So it's solid hitter. But that seems like a very similar return to what the Rangers maybe should expect. But this is not the only hitter on the free agent market or on the trade block by any means. This is the only player on the trade block who has an ALCS MVP, who has the record for the most RBIs set in a single postseason by any player in the history of ever. But I don't think that Adolis Garcia is necessarily the best player on the market. There are plenty of other outfielders and just bats in general that are on the market that I think will fetch a heftier price tag in terms of prospect status or just player status in return. Jarren Duran, I think, is going to be the most sought after bat on the trade block this offseason. I was about to say Dodgers. No, the Dodgers could end up maybe making a case for Jarren Duran to get their outfield a little bit younger. They have always a pretty darn good farm system, but Duran is kind of not blocked, but kind of blocking other players out there in left field. He had a down year this year, which is still around a 3.5-4 win season, which if that's a down year for you, that's a really darn good player, has several more seasons under contract. And the Red Sox have a lot of outfield talent out there that they don't have enough spots for. I mean, Willie Abreu is also probably going to be on the market. I think that is someone who will have a little bit more value than Adolis Garcia, just coming off of a Gold Glove season. I believe that is his second straight Gold Glove out there in right field. I still think Adolis Garcia probably should have won that Gold Glove, but Willie Abreu was a better hitter than Adolis last year. Cannot hit lefties, though. A right-handed against a guy who is only going to hit against right-handed pitching. So a little bit of a platoon bat only. Right now, I think Jo Adell is also listed as being on the market. He's still very young. He's 26 years old. He played center field last year. He had a career-high 37 home runs, was just a 1.2 WAR player last year because he didn't play all that great a defense, but this was a really good season for Jo Adell. I'm not sure how many more seasons he has under club control. I think it's at least a couple. He played 130 games in 2024. He played a full season this year, 152 games with 37 bombs and 98 RBIs. This is a very good player. I think he's more suited in a corner than he is in center field, but still a guy with a lot of talent, had a lot of hype as a prospect coming up, and it's just now kind of starting to figure it out. Heading into his age 27 season, this guy still has a lot of developmental meat on the bone for sure. The next guy on this list, Byron Buxton, who I don't think is going to get traded because he has a full no trade clause, unless the Twins are just going to somehow tear it down even further to the studs than they already have. I don't see Byron Buxton getting traded. He finished 11th in AL MVP voting this year, just one place shy of a $3 million bonus. If the Twins ownership was nice, they would go ahead and give him that bonus anyway, because I really think he should have been top 10 in MVP voting ahead of Jeremy Pena, who finished in 10th place. Steven Kwan is also on the trading block, allegedly. I don't see the Guardians making a move on him. If they didn't make a move on him at the deadline when they were pretty much out of it, good on them for not making that move, because without Steven Kwan, they do not make the postseason. Luis Robert Jr. is going to make $20 million. The White Sox picked up that club option this year. He plays really good center field defense. The bat is very up and down. He is very injury prone. I think that there is more value in trading for Adolis Garcia for one season at $12.5 million than there is trading for one season of Luis Robert Jr. for $20 million. And then Nick Castellanos, who is going to make $20 million this year, who's been a terrible defender, and he is also not a great hitter at this point in his career. I think Adolis Garcia probably stacks up somewhere ahead of maybe a little bit ahead of Joe Adell, but behind Byron Buxton if he gets traded, Steven Kwan, definitely behind the two Red Sox outfielders. And I think he's right around the kind of a price tag that we saw in the return for Taylor Ward. But what is that equivalent? What teams are even out there that would want to trade for Adolis Garcia? And is there any trade value in Jonah Heim? Talk about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you could even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. Let's look at some of these odds for FanDuel right now for the World Series in 2026 after some of these moves have been made. The Mets are somehow just a little bit ahead of the Seattle Mariners at plus 1,100. Mariners, the fifth favorite to win the whole dang thing at plus 1,200. Astros, sixth favorite at plus 1,400. And still Dodgers favorite at plus 350. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I will be talking about for you big nerds, you 40-man roster loving nerds, what are the end fringe moves? I'm talking about tomorrow's show. Who was protected from the Rule 5 draft? Who the Rangers should have protected? What moves should they have made to shore up some guys staying in the organization? All that and more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Rangers. Now, who are the possible suitors for Adolis Garcia? Right now, I don't see a whole lot of trade value in Jonah Heim. I don't think there are going to be a whole lot of teams that are, banging down the door to go and get Jonah Heim, especially because the Rangers have very much showed their hands. They have let out a cry to the world saying, "We're so poor, we can't afford anybody. Oh no, we are the brokest boys to ever live." And so if you cry poor that loudly, that distressedly for so many years, teams will say, oh, you're trying to ship off this guy to save some money? Then you're going to cut him regardless. So why would I give you a prospect? Why would I give you anything of value to go and get this guy when I could just wait until, I believe it's Friday, that is the non-tender deadline. So we will know pretty quickly about what is happening with these two guys, if they're going to get traded, if they're going to get non-tendered. I think Jonah Heim is likely to get non-tendered if the Rangers do not find a trade partner. $6 million isn't all that much for a catcher, given where the market is right now. But for what they've been getting out of Jonah Heim, and I think what they assume they can get out of Jonah Heim next season, they are more willing to just go ahead and cut bait and say, yeah, we're done with a guy who was our catcher the one year that we won a World Series championship, was an all-star that year, and was great. I mean, he was pretty darn good the year before that as well in 2022. But for the last 2 years, Jonah Heim has been one of, if not the worst qualified hitters in all of baseball. The defensive value has gone down a little bit. The pitch framing has not been where it had been in seasons past, like in 2022 and 2023 as well. He was a great pitch framer the last couple of years. Not so much. The OPS plus the last couple of years has been at 77 and 75. He was 25% worse than league average in 2024. He was 23% worse than league average this year. A 602 OPS in both seasons. It's just been rough. And when you're not providing value with the bat, you're not providing as much value with the glove, then at $6 million, it's not It's not an outrageous price tag for a catcher, even one who does not hit at all. I mean, Austin Hedges is a worse hitter than Jonah Heim, and he made $4 million last year. So it's not completely unreasonable, but it's just not where the Rangers want to spend their bucks this offseason. And for that reason of them tipping their hands and saying, oh, we're so poor. Oh, we're so poor. If they didn't do that, they might be able to get some value out of Jonah Heim. I don't know how teams look at Jonah Heim, what they value with him being a switch hitting catcher who in the past has had, really good offensive seasons, or at least one really good offensive season and one okay offensive season, then a bunch of not very good offensive seasons. Because outside of 2022 and 2023, and really basically just the first half of both of those seasons, he's been a bad hitter. I mean, in 2021, he was an awful hitter with Texas. I mean, and truly abysmal that season. In the last 2 years, he's been bad as well. So I just don't think there's a whole lot of value out there for Jonah Heim. Maybe there's a team that's got a little bit of money to spend that's fine spending $6 million on a defensive catcher who has great reviews. I mean, he was the primary catcher. He caught the most games this year of any Rangers catcher, and he was no small part of the Rangers having the best pitching staff in all of baseball this year. He's not all of it. Obviously, having Jacob deGrom and a good season from Jack Leiter and Nathan Eovaldi having the best season of his career, that helps. Same with Tyler Mahle having his best career season. But still, Jonah Heim definitely played a part in that. But there are some teams that will want Adolis Garcia. I think he gets a lot more ire than he deserves. He is the reason why the Rangers won the World Series. He's the reason why the Rangers got to the World Series and did not lose to the Astros in 2023. If not for Adolis Garcia, they do not have that core memory. You do not have that core memory. I do not have this little championship thing sitting on my desk every single day, staring at me, reminding me that this team used to be good at baseball. But he's just not what the Rangers needed this year. And so for that reason, the Rangers are saying, hey, let's reallocate some of that money. Let's go ahead and save a little bit in right field and go and spend that elsewhere. I don't think that's the smartest plan. I would much rather them just keep him and hope that next year he can get just a little bit better, because the defensive value made him a positive player. Even having Adolis Garcia out there, his bat was still better than what they're going to get out of Alejandro Ozuna next year. I feel very confident in that. And that's not to dismiss what Alejandro Ozuna is going to do next year or the kind of player he could be. I don't think Ozuna as your, primary right fielder is the best move right now. I don't think that. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. He has been proving people wrong for a long time. But you have to replace that player. If you're frustrated with Adolis Garcia, you say, oh, you got to trade that guy away. You got to cut that guy. You got to place somebody out there in right field. You don't just immediately have that position be filled by somebody who's competent. You've got to go find someone else to go get. And there are some teams that will want Adolis Garcia. He is a good player. He is a great defender out there. He does provide some power. He did still have 19 home runs last year in just 135 games. He's going to get you 20, 25 home runs at the minimum. And if he's playing defense like he did last year, that's a really good player. And some teams could use that kind of a power, because there are a lot of teams with really, really bad offense. The first team that I think of is the Kansas City Royals. That is a team that has been active talking about, hey, we want to get an outfield bat. We need another outfield bat. We just need some more power on this team that has a good pitching staff and has two really good hitters, three actually, maybe four really good hitters, depending on how you're looking at some of these guys. But I mean, Salvador Perez is coming off a 30 homer season as a 35-year-old catcher. That's really impressive. Vinny Pasquantino took a huge leap last year. He is a legitimately very, very good hitter. He played 160 games last year and had a 120 OPS plus. Bobby Witt Jr., I don't need to say more. Bobby Witt Jr. is incredible. Maikel Garcia was significantly better than most people think last year. He did make an all-star team and he deserved to. He had a 5.8 baseball reference for season and 800 OPS, which is very difficult to do in a very pitcher-friendly park in Kansas City. But outside of that, their offense just was not great. Maybe Jack Caglione makes a little bit more of a leap next year, but he had a 532 OPS and not a small sample size. I mean, 62 games is not tiny. I still think he is going to be a very good hitter eventually, but banking on that next year might not be the move for them. Michael Massey was not great for them offensively. Adam Frazier was kind of fine, but Carl Yastrzemski, they made a trade for him, and Mike Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski would be very good for them, but Mike Yastrzemski was fine for them in 50 games after they traded for him. but they just need a little bit more offensive thump. And I think that Adolis Garcia could be someone that they view and say, hey, especially with a big outfield that they have, having good outfield defense is a little bit more valuable in parks like Kansas City, like Colorado even. I don't think the Rockies are going to be calling on Adolis Garcia because they are just kind of a hot mess, and I don't think they're looking for much right now. But the Royals aren't the only team who could use a little bit more thump in that lineup and might just have a competent to very good package to give the Rangers for their 2023 ALCS MVP. Talk about who those teams are and more right after this. Now, the next team on this list that does not have a good offense is not going to shock you by me saying that the Pirates have a bad offense, but it may shock you me saying, yeah, the Pirates could definitely add on some money to their payroll, and they're willing to add some money to their payroll. They can add some money to their payroll is an obvious understatement of the century. They have Paul Skeens. He just won the Cy Young. He is an incredible singular talent. He finished third in Cy Young voting as a rookie, and I don't believe he came up until the end of May. It was not a full season. Maybe it was June by the time he came up, and he was already the third best pitcher in the National League after two guys had incredible seasons in 2024. But Paul Skeens is truly singular, and it was just an embarrassment that they were not spending money on their offense, and they really needed desperate help in their offense. I mean, they had truly the worst offense in all of baseball. I know the Rangers offense was rough to watch in 2025, but the Pirates offense, I mean, it was just straight up horrible. They had one player hit 20 home runs or more. It was O'Neal Cruz. He hit exactly 20, and he had a 676 OPS. They only had one other guy hit more than 15 home runs. 15! They had two guys hit 15 or more home runs. The other one was Brian Reynolds, who had a 99 OPS plus and 16 homers. That's it. They only had two other guys who hit even 10, three other guys who hit 10. Spencer Horwitz hit 11 home runs. They had Tommy Pham hit 10 home runs at age 37. And they had Andrew McCutchen hit 13 at age 38. They need offense. They need dingers. They need a guy who can drive in some runs. And they've got plenty of room on their payroll. I mean, their payroll is just minuscule. And you may be saying the Pirates have never given out money. They have never signed anybody to a big contract, but they just offered Josh Naylor. This is the one time. This happens all the time in off seasons where teams are like, oh, we were really close on this guy. We finished second on getting this big free agent that everybody wanted. And usually it's like, okay, who cares? You're first loser. Congrats. You still don't have the guy. But for the Pirates to have offered a major league player $80 million, they offered Josh Naylor $80 million. And the Mariners won out because they offered him $95 million. Now, I still think that's a lot more money that you should be paying pretty much any first baseman, unless they're like Freddie Freeman or they're Vlad Guerrero Jr. or they're like one of the best hitters in baseball. And Josh Naylor is good, but he is not that. But the fact that the Pirates were willing to give a guy more than double what the biggest free agent contract in Pirates history was, it was Francisco Liriano, and it was under $40 million. The biggest contract in free agent history for the Pirates was less than $40 million. It was for Francisco freaking Liriano. That's not a whole lot of money, but the fact that they might be willing to bring their payroll up from, 29th, 28th, 30th to maybe somewhere in the 20th range, that is a whole lot of money they have to play with. If they get their payroll around $100 million, that is a lot of money for some quality free agents. And adding $12 million for a guy who's going to get you almost assuredly 20, 25 homers and some really good defense out there, and I think Adolis Garcia, even with the struggles that he had last year, he might be the second best or maybe even best hitter in the Pirates lineup if they traded for him this offseason. They've got a lot of pitching prospects, a lot of young relievers who the Rangers could go and acquire in a trade like this. Maybe Cameron Majinski could be a guy who they kick the tires on. I don't know if they would be willing to give him up. Maybe Braxton Ashcraft is someone who is somewhere in the Rangers asking price. Maybe that's a bit too high of a price. They're definitely not getting Bubba Chandler. They're not getting Mitch Keller, I don't think, in a trade like that. But there's definitely some value there to be had. I think the next team on my list of a team that makes sense, that has the payroll flexibility and needs some offense, needs what Adolis Garcia brings. That's the San Francisco Giants. Could the Rangers go and call up Buster Posey and say, hey, just ask your boy, your new special assistant to the GM, the greatest manager in franchise history, and I guess multiple franchises histories. Hey, did you like coaching Adolis Garcia through that World Series run? Did you like, hey, Bruce Bochy, did you like coaching Adolis Garcia? Do you want him back on a team that you are employed by? I think the answer for him would be assuredly yes, because the Giants, they definitely need some offense. They just this year had a player hit 30 home runs for the first time since Barry Bonds. The first time since Barry Bonds, the Giants had just a pretty miserable offense. And in the corner outfield, there's not a whole lot there for San Francisco. I mean, there's really not a whole lot there. Heliot Ramos was basically manning right field, and they could use some help. They could use some upgrades. They were still an 81-win team. They've got some other good offensive players that are going to be a factor. Willie Adames down the stretch was a whole lot better. Matt Chapman was a really solid player. Jung-Hoo Lee was a good player for them. Obviously, Rafael Devers was a great player for them, and could be the guy who is the first left-handed hitter to hit 30 home runs. Willie Adames was that guy to break the 30 home run barrier for the first time since Barry Bonds. He did it with exactly 30 home runs in 160 games. But I think the Giants could be in the market for an outfielder. Will they be willing to give a decent price? I don't know. I think the Rangers, what they're looking for in a kind of return, maybe it's somewhere similar in a pre-arbitration reliever who they feel really good about, helping the Rangers long-term, getting those costs down, and they'd have to spend less money on a bullpen option if they went and traded for a pre-arbitration reliever like they did with the Nathaniel Lowe, Robert Garcia trade last year. That worked out pretty well for the Rangers, not as well for the Washington Nationals. But I think that could be something they go and kick the tires on, or maybe it's someone that's kind of a back end rotation guy. Maybe that's the way the Rangers want to go. I don't know exactly how they're going to go about this, but I think the Giants could be a target there. And the last team that I have on my list is a team that, $12 million is chump change to them. I think the New York Mets could use a little bit of what Adolis Garcia is bringing, mainly because if the Rangers traded him to the New York Mets, then Juan Soto could stop having to play the outfield every day because he is not particularly great at that. He is an incredible hitter. You just put him at DH, and then maybe occasionally you put him out there in left field. Maybe you put him in right field every once in a while to spell Adolis Garcia, give him a day off. But the Mets are also looking to trade away Brandon Nimmo, who played primarily left field for them this year. He's coming off a 3-win season, and I think that doesn't really make sense for them. Maybe they feel better about having Tyrone Taylor out there as an incredible defensive center fielder. Maybe that's what they're going to end up going, how they're end up going about it. I think Jose Siri still has 1 season under contract, but the Mets could use a defensive upgrade out there in right field. Their pitching staff was not great last year. I think it'll be better this year with maybe a full season of some of these younger guys like Nolan McLean, who was fantastic for them last year. I think putting Clay Holmes maybe back in the bullpen could help out both the bullpen and the rotation. David Peterson was really good for them last year. Kodai Senga was pretty good when he was healthy. And so maybe helping out that pitching staff by having a little bit of a defensive upgrade out there in right field. And if the Mets roll out a defensive outfield of Tyrone Taylor out there in center field, or even if it's Jose Siri and they throw out Brandon Nimmo in left field and Adolis Garcia in right field, that is a truly exceptional defensive outfield and could make their pitching staff just that much better. And also take away a little bit of the wear and tear on Juan Soto and let him just go out there and be an incredible, incredible hitter and not have to worry about defense, and let him go and maybe steal 39 bases next year. Maybe he has a 40-40 season. I mean, he had 38 stolen bases last year while playing pretty much every day in right field. And again, the financial situation is definitely a component there. Maybe that ends up being the case with whoever wants Jonah Heim. I truly have no idea what kind of value Jonah Heim has on this trade market. Catchers are weird. They are hard to evaluate. Their offense is very hard to evaluate. Sometimes it's incredible. Sometimes it's bad. That's why guys like JT Realmuto when they're at the peak of their powers, they get these big old contracts. And why JT Realmuto still might get a pretty big contract, because it is so hard to predict how good a catcher is going to be able to hit from season to season. Jonah Heim was an all-star in 2023, and then he was the worst hitter in baseball the next year, and he was still bad this year. It is impossible to predict, and it's also hard to put a price tag on the kind of impact that a good defensive catcher has on his pitching staff. I am just incredibly curious as to what that looks like with Jonah Heim. We'll probably know by the end of this week which way the Rangers are going to go. If they can't find a trade partner, I fully expect them to just go ahead and designate him for assignment. With Adolis Garcia, I think if they can't find a trade partner, they stick with him. I think that is the move that makes the most sense. I don't think just cutting bait with a guy who had a nearly Gold Glove season, should have been a Gold Glove season last year, and was not an abysmal offensive player. I don't think just straight up cutting bait with Adolis Garcia is going to be the move there. People have said maybe that's going to happen. I don't see that being the case. $12.7-ish million for a guy who is a 2.5, 3-win player out there in right field, who means that much to the fan base, who has had that many iconic moments, maybe the most iconic swing in the history of your franchise. I think just straight up DFAing him 2 years after that, it just does not make sense for where this team is. But I think there's someone who's willing to trade for Adolis Garcia. I don't know who it is. I don't know what they're going to give up, but those are the teams that I think will most likely be at least giving Chris Young a call this week. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.